Hi, I'm Beck from Beck Baker Instructional Design. When we're designing our e-learning, we're able to break down information into small bite-sized chunks using things such as tabs, accordions and carousels. And it's really useful for reducing that cognitive overload for our learners. But is it true interactivity? Some people will say it is. They can't move on to the next slide, for example, unless they have clicked on all of the tabs or gone through the whole accordion. But really it is just selecting a button and moving on. What we want to be able to do is get the learner to actually do something. And we can do that using dials. So I'm going to show you how you can insert dials and the basic parameters and settings that you already have in Storyline, and then how we can make them a lot more accessible, but also how you can convert anything into a dial and make it a lot more visually representing the information you're teaching them. So I'm going to show you a few different examples on that and show you how you can make something come to life rather than it just being a series of buttons to click through. I really hope you enjoy it. Let's get learning. So in a lot of courses we might have something like this. We've got a bit of a statement and then they have to select the different buttons to find out information. So how much sleep adults need, teenagers need and children need. And this is great. It's breaking down that information into bite-sized chunks. There is some interactivity because they're having to engage with the screen rather than just clicking the next button. But for true interactivity, we want them actually doing something that they're using their brains to think about that will help them remember this information better. And we're going to use dials to do this. Let's have a look at what dials we have in Storyline. So I've just got a blank slide here. We want to go up to Insert and over to Dial. And you'll see there are 3 different options here. So I'll just bring all of them up for you. You just click on the one you want and click and drag. And then I'll just insert this one, drag and insert the 3rd one. So click and drag where you want it. So these are the 3 different sort of defaults that you get. Now, if you inserted this one and realised you wanted that, but you've gone and changed all the parameters, you can, in the format, if we just click on here, you can just turn it into one of the dots. So these are effectively exactly the same. You'd be able to get access to each of those different things. And then you can change the fill, the border and the effects. You've only got a couple of effects actually, so you've got shadow and glow, and the same for the background, so we can just change the face colour if you want to, and border and the same effects. And then with the needle one, it is just the pointer that you can change. There aren't any other ones in here. And again, the same parameters to change, and then you have this little pin on top if you want to change the colour of that, so we can change it how we want. Okay, so I'll then just show you what all the different parameters are. So always remember to rename your variables. It makes it so much easier when you're setting triggers. For this particular one, I'm just going to leave them dial 1, 2 and 3 so we save time on the video, but make sure you name those. You can then update when the learner releases and when the dial is dragged. So I like it when the dial is dragged so they can see it. Now rotation, it always sets it to be 180, but you can just change this by either clicking here. We could type in the full number, say 360 for example. And also you can grab the red triangle and move that around to where you want it. Now you will see that this is moving to that point here because we've got the initial step as 6. So that's why our dial is moving. If you don't want it there and you want it on 0, that's where we can change our initial value. So we can just click in there and that's changed it. So we've just got a quarter now, for example. And you can set your start and end values. So we could have 50 on here. I'm just going to change it back to 180. And put that back at 6. So you may see again, like if it was 6, it'd be over here. but we can just change that back to 25 for the middle. And you can also grab the yellow diamond to be able to move that as well. So you've got a few different options of how you want your particular dial to be. So let's just view each of these. So we're going to go on to our preview. And the really good thing about the circle ones is anywhere in the circle is selectable. So I can click and drag, and anywhere I want is clickable, which is good. Whereas the needle one, if you see, I'll go slowly over it, it's only on the needle and it's not even on the little circle on the top, the little pin. So it's only on this section. And if I just go to inspect and select this button here, we'll see now that on the bigger laptop, so I've got the laptop setting here, it is 25 pixels. But if I went onto a smaller screen, it's like 8, nearly 9 on there. And unfortunately, you can't sort of get around changing this. So if I just close that, the only way we can make it bigger is by clicking and dragging, but it makes the whole thing bigger. We can't make just the width bigger. So this is just so you know, if you wanted to import a different image, you can change this into an image, so we can have a picture there, but it will always be, no matter what your picture size is, it will put it into these dimensions. This is actually 5.5 by 1, in case that's what you wanted. So maybe you wanted an arrow or something else and you liked this, like this is great. But if I just go to edit state, with buttons, I'm sure you've done this trick of inserting a shape over the top. So I'm just going to do a rectangle over the top, and we then might go, right, let's make it transparent and get rid of the outline. Okay, so now when we go here, with a button, we would have all of that area as clickable. Unfortunately, with dials, when you go to those, it now makes none of it clickable because it's got a rectangle over it and we can't get to it. So unfortunately, that's something that you can't do. But Storyline does have another way of being able to create a very similar looking image or whatever you want and making the whole thing selectable. So I'll show you that next. So to show you how you can turn anything into a dial, I'm going to use this slide that I've started building that I'm going to continue for the rest of this. So it's really straightforward one. Instead of giving them information about how much sleep an adult needs, we are asking them if they know, and then we can correct them and give feedback and even give this slide instead afterwards. So we could have just had radio buttons, we could have a slider that they move along to the correct number of hours, but with a dial, in this particular case, we're able to visualise, oh okay, I know that that's a clock face, and we could put numbers on here as well. So when they're moving the dial, which is going to be the hand of the clock, it makes it so that the learner actually goes, oh, I understand about clocks. This makes it a lot easier for me to visualise and understand how much sleep we might need. So this image here is just transparent, so I'll show you why it's transparent later when we get to it, and I've just got instructional text and a submit button. So now we need to insert a picture of our clock hand. So I'll show you that. It's easier just to import it in first. So I'm just going to center it. When you're importing an image, you want to make sure that you've got a transparent background for your dial, and that wherever you want it to pivot from is right in the center, and wherever you want it to point to is also centralized as well. So I'll just show you where that's a little bit different. I'm just going to insert a different picture that I have. So I've made this little hand here, and let's make it the right size. So when I click and drag this and center it, the pointer, the hand isn't in the center, it's slightly off, so that the pointer finger is going to the actual points of the dial that I want. So it's just making sure As you can see, you can import any image that you want. It's making sure that you've got those dimensions and positionings correct. So I'm just going to drag this back in here and center it again. And a good idea is to name everything. I always think you should, but I'm just going to call this clock hand. And the reason of that is when we convert it into a dial, it's kind of a point that you then don't have to go, oh, I don't want to miss that. So to turn it into a dial, it's really straightforward. You go back to insert and back to dial, but when you have an object selected, this becomes live, so I can convert to a dial. So whatever object I have, I can click on it and convert to a dial. And it's defaulted again to our 180 and 12 steps. So now I can, I'm just going to put that initial value at 0, and let's just drag it so our green is our starting point. So I'll put that in the center. And then I want 360 degrees for my clock. So then hopefully you can see this is lining up. And where I was saying about naming convention down here, it will automatically call the variable whatever your object was called. You can then go and change this. So if you've forgotten, you've left it as picture 1 or whatever the name of it is, you can change it here if you wanted to. But it's just something, it's remembering every time we insert something, we give it a name. It makes it a lot more simple. So when we now go and click on here and preview it, we'll be able to see that the dial is now all of this object. So it doesn't matter where I select. And even if we go to a tiny screen, we've still got a huge area to select rather than just that needle. So the next thing I want to do is show you how you can change the background so that it makes it again even more accessible for someone. So let's make this a lot more visual again, because at the moment when we turn the hand it's just pointing at something, but if we filled in the background as they went, it would make it easier to understand and follow. So to do that, I'm going to insert a shape and I'm going to insert a pie. So I'm just going to click and drag on this, and I want to center it to everything else. It will eventually go behind the clock, so that's why I've made it a little bit bigger, but for now I don't want it there because I wouldn't then be able to change it. And I just want to, if you can click and drag these, which is great, I love this tool. Click and drag, and we just want to set it at our 1 o'clock. So this is why it's useful having the dial that we can see and having it on top. So that's approximately correct. I'm just going to call it background pie. We know what that means. And we can move the position in the timeline later. And then we just want to go to states and edit states. Now we're going to leave the normal one for now. I'll come back to that one. And then all you want to do is duplicate the state, and we're going to call it 1. And then we are going to duplicate the state again, call it 2. And on this one, just select it, click and drag. And then again, just keep on duplicating. You don't want to do a new state or it will go from here and you've got to start again. And if you're anything like me, you'll forget where you got to. So I found that this is the best way to go about it. So just duplicate, click and drag. So I'll just finish those off. When we get to our final one, and call this 12, I don't know if you've used the pies before, but you won't be able to get this to 100%, the full circle. So the easiest thing is to just delete it and insert circle for this. The outline doesn't actually matter on this one because it's going to go behind, but that's how I like it. And then we go back to the normal, and again you can't move it to 0, so we just don't need it. We can just hit the delete key. So now when we click on here, you can see it going to all those positions all the way up to 12. and it looks a little bit messy. If we just click on the timeline and go send to back, and now click on that one and go to our states. Oops, sorry, wrong one. Onto our pie and go to states, then you can see it behind and it looks a lot better. Okay, so now we've created that, we actually want it to change each time we move the dial. So we want to go over to our triggers. First trigger we're creating. I'll move this so you can see the dial. So what we want to do is we want to go change state of background pie and set it to 1 when variable changes. I've got a lot of different ones on here, so I have to find the one we want. Clock hand. If our clock hand equals 1. And then we can just copy, paste that one, and then you can either change it in here to 2 and increase it to 2, or if I show you just for this one, we can select that and then just edit trigger and you can change it in here. It depends what you find easiest to do, but this one, because it's nice and straightforward, you can just do it in the triggers pane. Some people just duplicate all of them straight away. I found that my brain gets too confused, so I want to do that. And you want to continue that all the way up to 12. But you also need a 0 as well. So you, if we just duplicate, it will automatically go to the bottom. I'm just going to have this at top. So we want our background pie to be normal when the clock hand changes to the value of 0. So you want your 0, 1, and then all your 1 through to 12. So I'll quickly do those and then show you it working. So now I've created all of these. So it's going from our normal, our 0 setting, all the way up to 12. So when we preview that, we'll be able to see this time, not only do we see the hand moving, but we also see that background. And you can choose the colours to suit and make them as accessible as possible. The other thing that we can help to make it even more accessible is to add the actual number on the screen. So you can do that really easily. Just go to Insert and Text Box, click and drag a text box, so I can say number of hours equals, and then you can either use percentage signs, so name of your variable there, whatever it is, and that will show it. But if you're like me, you won't remember all the different names of things. So the easiest thing is to go back to that Insert tab and click on Reference here. And then we can search our own one. So I've got my clock hand here, but also you can go to all the project built-in ones as well. So if you're not quite sure of all the different names of these, it's a easier way than trying to type it in. So I can select my clock hand, and then you can make that particular text bold or whatever you want to do with it. And then when we preview this time and move the dial, not only will you have that visual representation of the clock and the amount of hours you're selecting, you're also changing the number over here. So it's just nice to be able to put that into your course. So now we've got our slide looking how we want it and nice and accessible. We want it so that they actually go to either the correct page or the incorrect page. So it's, instead of it just being one number, I'm going to allow them to choose between 7 and 9. But depending on what you're actually doing, you may want to set number. So all we're going to do is we're going to show layer correct when the user clicks on the submit button. So that's why I highlighted it just then. If our variable clock hand is between two values, so I want it between 7 and 9. And if it doesn't go between those, then it will go to our incorrect. So on our else, it's show layer incorrect. So we want to go correct when they select this button. if the clock hand is between 7 and 9. So now when we select it, and preview, and we move it, so I'll get it wrong first. So yep, 4 hours is plenty. Not. Then it will show our incorrect slide. And oh, I just need to go back out and in. That's because of it will just leave it in the last position, and that's confusing. So I'll just preview it again. So if I get it correct this time, so say 9 hours I think we need, and hit submit, we get our correct page. Now we do want to make sure that our variable is reset, so that when they go back to this page, because I have it set as reset to initial state, that will reset everything but not variables. So we just need to go, and I'll just move this up, adjust variable, and we want clock hand to 0 when the timeline starts on this slide, and I'm just going to hit the delete key. So we want it that whenever they go back to this, it's going to just set back to our 0, or whatever point it happens to be that you've set it. And also I just want to, with here, is create a disabled state again, like I've done in previous ones. So if I just go to disabled, and I want it to be exactly as it was before, and when I go onto my correct or incorrect layer, I want to change the state of my clock hand to disabled when the timeline starts on this layer. And it just means they can't then start changing things again once they get on this one. They can't select it. Okay, so I hope that was useful, going through the different things to make it more accessible, how you can change anything into a dial. And I just wanted to show you a little bit more like what you can do. So I have one on gas laws here, and I also have a catapult. So I'm just going to preview this scene just to show you how these work. So it's basically just showing you other ways that you can use dials, and you can do them for lots of things. So in this particular one, I'm able to select one of the different laws, and it will lock one of them. So I've put the text as well in inactive, so they know they can't click on it. And then I'm able to select these, and I just have this as a, if we turn this one to this one goes to here. You could start using more complicated variables to add and subtract, but because I only had 6, it was easier. So I can click on those and move them, and it resets each time when you click on a button. So it's nice and simple, just showing you. So this is a way for, you know, instead of just saying, oh, temperature is proportional to pressure, then they can actually go, oh, okay, when I increase temperature, pressure increases. So that's something quite nice. And then this one is just a little bit of fun. So you can turn, like I said, any image. So I've got it that this arm here is an image, and so is the ball. And when I click and drag and launch, I quite like doing the last one. I launch it, off it goes off the screen. And once they get it correct, it will go into the bucket. So again, they're working out angles. You're actually getting someone to think about something, and you could have arrows going or whatever. But it just shows you that you can make something that may have been, you know, something quite difficult to visualize. Okay, I'm trying to work out the angle. What angle would I need to throw a ball at to get it the furthest? Instead, you're able to actually give them something to interact with. So I hope that was really helpful. If there's anything that you want me to do in future videos, just write it down in the comments. Until next time.